A big family, lots of alcoholics in my family, and I actually went to my first Al-Anon meeting when I was about 16 or 17. It was in the 70s, and it was a basement of a church. And in those days, it was okay to smoke. Everybody was smoking there, and that's where I could smoke. It was okay for me to smoke there, and I went because my father, I didn't know what was going to happen with him. And if he continues to drink the way he's drinking, something bad's going to happen. And so I called the AA hotline and they said, "Who are you?" And I said, "This is what the situation is." And they said, you can go to Al-Anon. And they didn't have a lot of Al team there, was far, so I went to the Al-Anon meeting. And it was different than what I expected. I thought they were going to give me a list, and I was going to take the course, and then at the end of the course, my father would stop drinking. And it didn't happen that way. But there was something about the meeting. I couldn't explain it. I didn't have the language. I didn't know what it was, but there was something about that meeting. There's something about those people who claimed to have the same problem, but they were laughing and talking, and so I didn't go back. I'm like, okay, but that's not for me. That's good for them, but that's not for me. And I went off to live my life, and through the course of a bunch of, a lot of what Tom talked about, like my drinking, was extreme. I had extreme behavior in a lot of areas, and I could tell you a lot of different things about that, but the bottom line was I knew I had a problem, and I knew I needed help. I would go to therapists, and they would say, "There's a 12-step meeting for this," because I would talk a lot about my father's alcoholism. I would talk a lot about the problems I had with drinking. And so eventually I found myself at an AA meeting, and it was by mistake. I really didn't belong there, but I was like, I really needed help. And so I listened and took it in and realized, yes, I have this disease. And I asked the woman to be my sponsor. My sponsor just happened to be an Al-Anon too. And she said, just 90 meetings in 90 days. She took me in under a wing, and she told me what I needed to do to recover from alcoholism. And she took me through the big book and the steps. And every week I would check in with her and I talked to her. And it was just, I never did this. I never let anybody in. Never let anybody really see what was going on inside of me. But she was like, "This is what we do, and this is what you're going to do." So I did what I was told. It was a good, rule follower. And but what happened was I continued to. I got a lot of relief from the steps. The steps were amazing. I had spiritual experiences taking the steps with my sponsor, and it was great. And I lost that desire to have any alcohol. And it was, I can't say that I loved going to meetings at that point, but I was like, there's something to this. This is really good. I'm going to keep listening to what she tells me to do. And I made her my higher power. That's what Al-Anons do, is they make people their higher power. Alcoholics make the alcohol their higher power, and Al-Anons make people their higher power. And I was really good at doing that. I'm going to follow what you do, and I'm going to do exactly what you do until you fall off that pedestal I put you on, and then I will have nothing to do with you. And I'm really angry about it and resentful about that. And so anyway, she really helped me a lot, understand my alcoholism and recover, and she helped me understand the steps. And but she would say, she would listen to me very patiently and kindly, and she would be understanding, and she would say, "You're talking a lot of Al-Anon stuff here. You need to go to an Al-Anon meeting." I'm already going to these meetings. I don't want to go to any different meetings, but I knew, she said it was probably something that was going to be good for me to do. So I went to my first Al-Anon meeting as an adult, not as a teenager, and I didn't like it. It was different. It was, people were talking about stuff I did, and I didn't see the reason. I didn't see the point. But the thing is, I felt a little bit better. I felt a little bit more able to cope with whatever was going on in my life at that time. But again, it's like, I don't need to do it again. I went to that one meeting, so that's enough of that. And then, you know, my life went on over the years. In February 14th, next year I'll be sober 18 years, God willing. So this is like after I had done all the steps in AA, I kept saying the same things to my sponsor. And she just got sick of it. She was like, you know, you keep talking about these Al-Anon things, but you're not willing to go to Al-Anon and to get help there. And I still, even when she said that, I was like, I don't think I really need it. It wasn't until I felt a lot of pain from the relationships that I was in that I decided I have to do something different. I need to do something different. When I came into AA, that was doing something different, and now I need to do something different. So I committed to going to one Al-Anon meeting a week. Okay, I'm putting this in my calendar. I'm going to this meeting and just listen and shut up and stop figuring it all out and be there. And it was, I can't really describe to you what happened with that, but I started to change. And I started to slow down and stop running and look at myself. And I recognized that I was really, you know, even though I had gotten some serenity from AA, I still didn't have a lot of serenity most of the time. I was really affected by the alcoholics in my life, but also other people, frankly. You know, I was, I'm my profession, I'm a therapist, and I was always trying to fix everybody. I was trained to do that. And then when I started having children, I was trying to be a good mother and recognizing that they weren't doing what I wanted them to do. And how can I have serenity and, you know, do what I'm supposed to be doing, which is making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And Al-Anon, so how Al-Anon helped me, and this is what I'm supposed to be focusing on. That's what the woman that asked me to do this talk isn't here, but I'm grateful she asked me, because all week long I've been thinking about that. How does Al-Anon help me? You know, and there's so many areas I could focus on that it has helped me, but I am not the same person I was when I came into Al-Anon. It changed me. And I didn't realize that I had so much trouble with relationships. And the first relationship, the highest priority relationship was my relationship to God and my relationship to myself, how I treated myself. And I thought I did. You know, I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, but I really wasn't looking inside. And Al-Anon helped me to turn around and say, okay, what is this feeling? And what is this about? What step does this apply to in Al-Anon? And by the way, the steps in Al-Anon are the same as in AA. I mean, I did a little bit of research. You know, I was like, is this going to help me really? And I studied Lois, who was Bill W.'s wife, considered a saint even by Bill W., had issues with relationships. And she, this is his story. In his story, she is talking to him, and all of a sudden she takes off her shoe and hits him with the shoe. And I was, you know, as I was researching this, I was like, I could do something. That was something I would do. You know, it's like, oh, I'm so frustrated. You know, I'm going to resort to violence. And I really didn't know what was going to help. And, you know, Lois knew. She knew what was going to help. It was the steps. And they didn't change the steps for Al-Anon. They didn't say, oh, this is different. You know, we don't have that problem that those alcoholics have. She said, I'm profoundly affected by the disease of alcoholism because I am in relationship with this person who is an alcoholic, and I need to take responsibility for that. And what better way to have serenity with a disease than the steps, unchanged. And so anyway, so I, you know, started to take the steps in Al-Anon, and it was very different, a very, very different experience. Same steps, you know, different way of doing it with Al-Anon. And I had to ask somebody in Al-Anon to be my sponsor. Go figure that, you know, because I I'm not a good sponsor to myself, you know. And so I had somebody help me, walk me through the steps, and you know, it was a humbling in a different way. It was a humbling experience, and it taught me that, you know, my world, what I was experiencing in my world, all the feelings I had, all the crisis, all the drama, was of my own making, and I could change that. And there were some things I had control over, and there were some things I didn't have control over. And I had to learn that, what that was, because I was trying to control the things I couldn't control, and I was letting go of the things that I could control. And Al-Anon really helped me with making different priorities. And I learned that, you know, God was, you know, my idea of God was not making it. I had to have a different kind of God. I had to recognize that God was able to handle these situations that seemed impossible. I had to recognize that God knew what I didn't know, that I didn't know what was going to happen. I saw these behaviors. It reminded me of my dad. You know, it didn't work out good for my dad because he died an alcoholic. He died when he was 60. You know, he was a very sick person and didn't find recovery. And so when I saw these behaviors in people that I loved, it was like, I don't know. Can God do this? Can God make it okay? I don't know. You know, I had to recognize that, you know, it was my idea of God. It was like I was thinking God wasn't going to be able to do it, and I could change that. I could choose today to think God is all powerful. God knows this. I don't have to know what's going to happen. God knows this. Okay, what am I responsible for? I'm responsible for taking care of myself. I'm responsible for participating in my life as well as I can. You know, when I, like what Tom was saying, you know, when I say I'm going to be there, I am there. You know, I don't make excuses because, oh, this big crisis, it's you know, that's my responsibility. And God can take that crisis. And I learned how to use God. It's like, that was sacrilegious to me growing up. God was like over there, and it's kind of scary, and you know, he's busy taking care of people in third world countries. Doesn't have time for my problems. I had to move God in here. And that's what Al-Anon helped me to do. You know, I wasn't doing it in AA. I'm sure you could do it in AA, but I had so many issues with relationships, with other alcoholics. I come from a big family of alcoholics. When my daughter started showing signs of addiction, it scared the hell out of me. Even though I had been in Al-Anon for a while, it was all new territory. I kept taking it back. I kept saying, God's not going to, this is my daughter. She's my baby. I am the one that's responsible for her. I have to make sure she doesn't get hurt and that she is okay and grows up and goes to college and get all these things that she was supposed to do. And Al-Anon helped me with that by, you know, helping me to keep coming back to, yes, God is good. God's got my daughter. God is taking care of her every single day, every single minute of every day, every single second. It doesn't take a break. And, you know, it wasn't always relaxing for me. It wasn't always, you know, when I see her, you know, hooked up to life support because she, you know, drank to excess and passed out and, you know, needed that, I was not calm. I was not calm during, but I knew how to get back to calm. And it wasn't controlling her and becoming a maniac. And really, you know, the thing that Al-Anon taught me is that I could have a relationship with my daughter whether that she's drinking or not. And my job really as a parent was to love her, not to save her, not to be her higher power, but to love her. And Al-Anon taught me to do that because my sponsor loves me, and she would, you know, help me with that, and she would help me to love myself, to forgive myself for being human and not being God. And forgiveness, I was taught, was letting go. Let go. Let God do this. My daughter became an adult, and she made choices for herself. The